For the 2 years I was sitting in there, I didn't know any of this.
And they were working for 2 years?
For 2 years.
And you're working with them during this period?
No, I was inside the prison.
Oh, wow.
I was arrested already. I didn't know this. And they were working, coordinating stuff with El Jefe, still moving product for him.
What happened with that? Because Jefe's still free in Mexico.
Yeah. So what happened was,
but how did that?
This is what I heard because I got the discovery by lawyers said, hey, they just these guys are pleading guilty. I said, what do you mean pleading guilty? And I looked at the date. It was like 3 years after. I'm like, or 2 years after. I'm like, what do you mean? And then he showed me this discovery, and he showed me like they basically set up a 270 kilo bust. These guys set up.
Right.
And, you know, they should have probably got like 10 years. They did like 11 months because they were working the whole time.
Right.
And don't get me wrong. The government offered me that same deal.
Yeah.
You know, you ought to work. You know, we'll let you free right now. And you're like, hey, come on, that's not going to happen. But these guys chose that path.
Yeah, of course. They're college kids.
They're squares. Like you said, like you were surprised I didn't do that, but these squares, they did that. And it worked for them. You know, they got 11 months.
So they sounds like they took down a bunch of El Jefe's
workers
cells in the U.S. right?
Like, okay, so you got 270 birds. Do you think El Jefe's upset? Maybe, but at the end of the day, he's free, right? He's probably.
Well, that happens. There's always a turnover, right?
It's part of your business plan.
All the Mexican bosses expect that their organizations in the U.S. will go down, and then they'll have to rebuild somewhere else. It's just part of the game.
And if anyone knows the game, they all have a percentage of the load. So you and I are working for the cartel. We work with the cartel. Towards the end of my run, I had, 10, 20% of the load. And you as El Jefe probably have 50%, but you give all your workers a little piece of the pie because that's how we earn. That's how we get to grow with the company. And a lot of people don't know that, but that's how this game works.
What do you mean? So
if you're in
a load of 1,000 kilos,
let's say 1,000 kilos, I know El Jefe has a little of my money. I'm going to say, El Jefe, can I get like 5% of that at the cost over there? And then your invested interest is in that money. He's got your money, so he doesn't care if it gets picked off.
Right.
But then we get the price in the U.S. once we sell it, or in Philly or New York, whatever the price of that market is, we all have invested interest. So that's how the company grows. And a lot of people don't know that.
Interesting. That's fascinating.
And it's just like a business.
It's like a corporation. It's like buying shares.
Buying shares and letting it grow. And we all take risks. And I like that kind of risk because I feel like I'm part of the cartel now.
Right.
I'm a member of the cartel.
Yeah. I mean, your boy Tank literally operated and opened his own market, his own cell.
That's right.
In New Jersey.
He had a great market.
And you guys were bringing over coke, weed, heroin.
Everything. Dude, we had the Cali weed, he was a grower his whole life. So we were selling like 200, 300 pounds of weed every time. And we were using the chocolate company.
Yeah.
It was genius because they had a hub in New Jersey where the chocolate company was. So we could just use their trucks.
Wow.
And that's a lot easier.
So you have chocolate trucks going across the country with all these drugs.
And I'm giving them transportation fees. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to give you 300 on every kilo. And I'm going to give you 100 on every pound of weed. So they're like, fuck yeah. Wow. So now they're owners of my company.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Like you get it once it makes it.
Wow. So it sounds like the Chocolate Brothers were the big key to this case.
Yes.
The key to your time, because you were sentenced to 21 years. I don't think like the $700,000 in cash.
They didn't care about that cash.
I don't think that could have got you 20 years.
No.
You were a big time drug trafficker, dude.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I know I was breaking the law and I know I deserved to go to prison. I'm not going to lie. I broke the law. I sold drugs. I belong in prison. But at the end of the day, I was trying to pay back somebody at a higher level to save my life.
Who else in that case? Did they have Jefe's name in the paperwork?
No.
Okay.
Never.
Wow.
And I've seen a lot of paperwork, and there's people that say, "Oh, you're a rat. You're a rat." Listen, I've never ratted on anybody from Mexico. Never anyone for the organized crime. No one that was involved in my case got in trouble. And I can honestly say
you went down. Nobody else went down.
No one went down.
Did anybody else tell besides?
My people in Australia had already pled guilty way before I even took a deal.
Wow.
So I knew it was a game of chess. I'm just watching. I'm like, okay, who's taking deals?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to watch and see what's going on because when you're going against the government, you can't just not do anything. You got to at least tell on yourself, right?
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. El Chapo sat in that room and told what he did, because if you don't, you're never going to get out.
No.
And so I did that. I told about stuff they already knew, and I confirmed, like, okay, I met this guy through a bookie, and that's not telling. They've already known it.
No, they know it.
And for anyone who says that's ratting, it's not, because
they want you. There's something very sick about that. It's like you're there. Your life is at their mercy, and they just want you to. It's like they're God, and they want you to repent. There's a real deep.
It's sick, right?
There's a deep sadistic, religious undertone kind of attitude to that. It's like, just tell us everything.
Everything.
My son. It's real evil.
And I'm not going to lie, Johnny. I went into those meetings, that first meeting, and my lawyer's like, dude, I'm going to tell you right now, they already know everything. You've waited this long. I waited so long because I'm fighting this case, and you're never going to beat these guys. They know everything. And then when he showed me that the Chocolate Brothers were cooperating, that they're working with the cartel, I'm like, oh, that's not good. Where they showed me that the Australians had already taken a deal, the guys that introduced me to the FBI agents, two of the main guys that I was dealing with introduced me to the money launderers. Right. And they were FBI agents. So
that was a terrible move.
And I was protecting them this whole time. And then when I got arrested, I'm like, oh, fuck no. But I still was considerate, and I waited till they pled guilty.
Right.
And that's pissed me off, because if I would have came to them and like, okay, this guy did this guy did this, I probably would have got a lot less time. Right. But I didn't, because I was being respectful of the game. Yeah. And so when I saw all these pleading people playing guilty, I was like, man, do I have sucker on my head? Does it say sucker on my head? I'm telling my lawyer, like, man, like, fuck, I got to at least just tell on myself. Right. And that's what I did. I told on myself. Well, but it's not telling. I don't care who you are. Everyone has to do it. And if you don't, guess what? You're not getting out.
You were saying before we started the show, there were lawyers from Mexico that were sent up to you, and they gave you people that you could tell on in order to save yourself. Like, they offered it to you from the cartel.
It's part of the service.
Explain that.
So that's how the cartel works. And for any of you that don't know, I mean, it's the facts. You get arrested, and if you're someone high up on the food chain, guess what? They're going to try to help you get out. They know how valuable I was. I was a fucking legend in California, right? They called me the California Kid for a reason, right? So they're like, dude, we want to help this guy.
Right. So who were some of these people that they offered for you to tell on? They gave me these guys. They had lawyers come in that weren't even related to my lawyers. I'm like, you get that legal call, and you're like, oh, well, fuck, what's my lawyer here? He was just here 2 hours ago. And you get in the legal room, and it's not your lawyer. And like, you know who he's there. He's like, hey, you know who I work for? And he's like, hey, the boss sent this guy over. He goes, he does this, this, and this. I'm not going to say it, but he does this, this, and this in Mexico. He's wanted. Here's his wanted. He goes, you can go in there and give him this, and you'll probably get some time off. I'm like, man, wow, this is way too much for me. like wow. You know what I mean? It's far out, but that's how the cartel works. And that was sent from Jefe.
It was sent.
That was your boy.
Dude,
he was trying to help you.
That's how it works. They're just trying to get you out. They're trying to help you. And I'm not mad at it. I feel like that's like, it kind of touched my heart. Like, you're actually trying to help me.
Well, because he wants you working again. Let's be honest.
Well, that's not happening. But in the first day I got arrested, I remember this Colombian lawyer flew from Miami, and he represented all the Cali cartel. Wow. And they sent him, and they're like, dude, I don't care what anybody tells you. You go in that room. I don't care if you have to lie. You tell him a story, because if you tell him that story, he goes, at least you're looking like you're being honest. But I had already hired an attorney like an hour before that. And I was so mad at myself. I hired this attorney, and I have all these other attorneys flying all over the world. I had Michael Jackson's attorney show up. I had Suge Knight's attorney show up. I had all these attorneys showing up that wanted to represent me. Wow. Because I'm this USC golden boy. They all wanted my name connected to it.
These cartel lawyers in the US, are they Hispanic or are these white guys? These are Hispanic guys, right? Right.
Like the guy that came from Miami was Colombian.
That's crazy.
And he told me this
How's
stuff.
he able to get into the courtroom? How's he able to get into the jail?
They have pull. It's incredible.
That's incredible, bro.
And I remember the person that introduced me to him was like, or told me that he was coming, I was like, how is this even allowed? Like,
right.
Like you have to have clearance. You know what I mean? Like,
how do you just get into a supermax jail?
So crazy.
Were you at the Tombs in downtown?
No, so I fought this case in San Diego.
Okay.
MCC San Diego.
Yeah.
So the tower.
But
it's 12 floors. It's supermax. Like, they put me at the highest floor because I was considered, high profile.
Wow.
But I was with senors, Mexican mafia guys. I was with like 3 senors. I was with like Aryan brothers. I was with the top dogs, right? And at the end of the day, you're like, man, how did I get to this level? Man, like, it all started with that, college, right? Trying to fit in.
And I wonder if Jefe is, after this all happened, said, why the fuck I'm offering this guy a gift? He's not a rat. Just give up this guy who's probably my enemy anyways.
For sure.
Why isn't he taking the deal? I would have taken it. I'll tell you right now. I would have been like, yeah, hey, I know this guy from Juarez.
I'm going to tell you the problem.
This is where he's at.
I'm going to tell you the problem. These guys know everything. You got to remember that. The feds are so smart. They're lawyers too, right? They know everything. So if I start talking about a guy I have no clue about, and they start asking me questions that they already know the answer about that guy, and I'm lying to them, guess what? Everything's off the table. Right.
So then if you got caught lying during your proffer session, do you think you would have got life?
For sure. For sure. My lawyer said it's 30 to life. You're getting my first lawyer. And that's when I fired him.
Yeah.
He said, you got to shit or get off the pot. And when he said that, I was like, I'm fucking young kid. I've never even got a jaywalking ticket. Like, like, what is this about?
Yeah.
Like, so that's when I knew that this case was a little more serious. Got a book for the winner this week, Omar from Farmers Ranch, Texas. Hey, this is you, Omar. Thanks for the support. Fight on. Your favorite convict, Owen Hansen, number 88, California kid. Thanks, buddy. Keep watching. Fight on.